This is Mac OS Ken.
Trump tariffs tank Apple shares after hours. The NLRB freezes a couple of Apple cases. And the next OS updates are out to developers. It is Thursday, the 3rd of April, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Apple shares ended trading yesterday at $223.89. They'll start today somewhere in the $208 neighborhood. Sizable sell-off in after-hours trading Wednesday, with shares shedding close to $16, or a little over 7%. What happened? Ask the guy who thinks groceries is an old-fashioned word. As had been expected, President Trump announced just a staggering set of tariffs on Wednesday after the closing bell. 9to5 Mac and Mac Rumors wrote up the Apple angle, which really doesn't look pretty. First, 9to5 Mac says Trump announced a base rate of 10% tariffs on all imports into the U.S., a move that will have significant economic impact on its own. The 10% levy goes into effect this Saturday, the 5th of April. But it gets worse where Apple is concerned. That's thanks to the administration's reciprocal tariffs on select nations, where the price of U.S. exports are said to be inflated by international government measures. By 9to5's reckoning, imports from China, where most iPhones are made, imports from China face a tariff rate of up to 54%, a combination, they say, of the 34% reciprocal tariff announced Wednesday on top of the 20% levy the president launched in January. Now, maybe you're thinking it's a good thing Apple diversified its supply chain. Not so fast. Imports from Vietnam, from whence many AirPods, Apple Watches, and MacBooks come, those now face a 46% tariff. Imports from Thailand, which may be in the MacBook game, face a 36% tariff. Taiwan, they make the occasional processor and/or semiconductor, that gets a 32% tariff. India, home to much of Apple's manufacturing diversification, gets a 26% tariff. Japan 24%, Malaysia 24%, and the EU 20%. Apple CEO Tim Cook was able to talk Trump into tariff exemptions during the last administration, though the president says he will not be giving those out this time around. That said, the reciprocal tariffs don't actually kick in until the 9th of April, and Trump has been known to walk back certain decisions. If there are not exemptions, though, and there is no change, this could be ugly. This could be ugly for Apple. What did I say? As 9to5 Mac points out, the increased cost of production will either see Apple's margins curbed substantially, or the company will be forced to increase the price of its products to compensate, likely lowering demand as customers are turned away by the resultant sticker shock. So either Apple takes a hit to its bottom line, or Apple raises prices, making its stuff less affordable, meaning it's able to sell less of that stuff, delivering a hit to Apple's bottom line. Of course, a lot of people may not notice because they might be too busy worrying about the cost of, get this word, groceries? Am I saying that right? Is it grockeries? Groceries? That was $1 million well spent, wasn't it, Mr. Cook? Hey, I'm sorry, maybe it was $1 million well spent. A piece from the Financial Times, which is based in Great Britain. A piece from the Financial Times says the U.S. National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB, has frozen investigations into Apple. The move comes just a couple of days after the Trump administration nominated Crystal Carey, a partner at Morgan, Lewis & Bockius, to be the NLRB's general counsel. Before the nomination, the piece says Carey served as an attorney acting in Apple's defense in both cases against Apple, cases suddenly frozen by the NLRB. According to the report, the NLRB filed multiple complaints against the Cupertino company last year, alleging it intervened against employee attempts to organize, but abruptly pulled back from 2 of the cases late last week, according to documents seen by the Financial Times. The 2 cases in question were at the center of the Apple II movement. The Financial Times describes that as an employee backlash against Apple over its handling of wage discrimination and harassment claims. The piece says the plaintiffs, both women, filed complaints with the NLRB after leaving the company, claiming they were sacked because of their labor organizing efforts. Last year's NLRB agreed with them, accusing Apple of violating federal labor laws. Hearings in the cases had been set for this month and for June, but the piece says the NLRB late last week informed them that the trials had been postponed indefinitely, pending a legal review by the agency's head office. According to the report, Kerry's nomination comes as Trump seeks to tighten his control of independent federal agencies, stoking concerns his administration is eroding important democratic guardrails and institutions. That's how it looks from England. Kerry is still an employee of Morgan Lewis, pending Senate confirmation for the NLRB gig. Interestingly, that law firm also represented SpaceX and Amazon in disputes between management and labor. Declining to comment for the Financial Times piece were the law firm, Apple, the NLRB, and the White House. The only party that did offer comment was one of the plaintiffs in one of the cases. She was quoted as saying, "I fear for the future of workers' rights and for the ability of any worker to get their day in court under this administration." Gosh, it's hard to understand why. Speaking of lawsuits, as we so often do, a piece from Mac Rumors says Apple is facing a $5 billion with a B class action lawsuit over ebooks availability. Personally, I think it stinks that when you buy an ebook, you're almost never actually buying the book. What you're buying is a revocable license to that book. That's true for Amazon's Kindle, for Apple Books, for Barnes & Noble's Nook, I assume. It stinks. At the same time, it's often less expensive than buying physical books, it's less wasteful, and it's really convenient. The chance of being able to find a physical copy of The Unbearable Lightness of Being in Sturgis, Kentucky is pretty slim. That's true of just about any book since Sturgis doesn't have a bookstore. So yeah, you don't technically own the ebooks you buy through Apple or Amazon, but that is apparently news to a plaintiff in a case in California this week. According to Mac Rumors, the proposed class action complaint explains that Apple is required to pull a digital book or audiobook from the Apple Books app if and when it loses a license to that content, resulting in the content no longer being available in the app's store. As a result, the complaint alleges that some customers have unexpectedly found that digital books they previously purchased were no longer available to re-download, despite having paid for them. The suit points out that the purchase screen in the Apple Books app does not include a link to any terms of service or licensing information. However, Mac Rumors points out that users are required to agree to Apple's various software license agreements to use Apple services. Those include terms and conditions for Apple Media Services, which includes the part about books acquired, let's say. The part about books acquired through Apple Books. According to that, purchased content is usually available to download again to other devices or again to the same device, but sometimes Apple loses its right to keep the content available. To ensure your ability to continue enjoying content, Apple encourages users to download all purchased content to a device in the user's possession and to back it up. They apparently didn't read that part though, so $5 billion, please. A judge has yet to be assigned to the case according to the report. Whether it will be certified and actually go to trial remains to be seen. From not being able to download something you want to downloads you've gotten rid of coming back. A piece from my download blog says a bug in this week's iOS 18.4 update is seeing deleted applications turn back up on people's devices. According to the report, complaints on the Apple support community forums and Reddit described the issue that appears for some iPhone owners after updating their device to iOS 18.4 this week. In many cases, users are greeted with apps on their home screen that they previously deleted, some dating back years. It's unclear how many iPhone owners are affected. It's also apparently not just iPhone. iDownload blog's Kristen Zivrig says this actually happened to them with their Apple TV. Kinda crazy. Looks like fun's over for Apple's OS teams. Roughly 48 hours after this week's release of operating system updates, a piece from Apple Insider says developer betas have rolled out for the next round. Developer betas of iOS and iPadOS 18.5 were seeded on Wednesday, along with betas of macOS 15.5, tvOS 15.5, watchOS 11.5, and visionOS 2.5. Boutique research firm Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or CIRP, has run an interesting study on the correlation between owners of Apple devices and subscribers to Apple TV+. According to their findings, the more Apple devices you have, the more likely you are to be an Apple TV Plus subscriber. Or is it the other way around? A piece from 9to5Mac has CIRP saying, it appears Apple TV Plus subscribers are more likely to own more Apple products. According to the firm, for folks without an Apple TV Plus subscription, 23% own one Apple device, 42% own two, with 34% owning three. That last one's kind of an odd metric to me, but we'll come back to why. For people with an Apple TV Plus subscription, 13% own one Apple device, 36% own two, and just over half, 51%, own three. And now we can talk about why that magic number sounds strange. CIRP says what they're counting when they say three products are the big three: iPhone, iPad, and Mac. I say that's odd because it leaves out smaller products like Apple Watch and AirPods and the super expensive outlier Apple Vision Pro. It also doesn't account for multiples of any products, says a guy with 4 iPads, 4 iPhones, 3 Macs, 2 Apple TVs, 2 Apple Watches, 4 Apple Pencils, and 3 pairs of AirPods in use by various members of the family. Anyway, people with lots of Apple stuff are more likely to be Apple TV Plus subscribers. Draw what conclusions you will. And finally today, speaking of Apple TV Plus, as we often do, there's a trailer out for the Cupertino streamer's next notable movie. The company attached that to a press release Wednesday teasing Fountain of Youth. It's got a lot going for it. Global locations, directed by Guy Ritchie. Big cast, including Natalie Portman, John Krasinski, and Stanley Tucci, among others. Describing the picture, the release says Fountain of Youth follows 2 estranged siblings, Krasinski and Portman, who partner on a global heist to find the mythological Fountain of Youth. They must use their knowledge of history to follow clues on an epic adventure that will change their lives and possibly lead to immortality. Articles I saw about it said the trailer brought Indiana Jones vibes. I didn't really feel that personally. To me, it was more National Treasure, thanks to its modern-day settings. Minus the fun, though. And judge for yourself. The trailer is up now on YouTube. You can find Fountain of Youth streaming on Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 23rd of May. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
And now, crickets.